2022 meeting of the Citizens Land Oversight Committee to order. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Don Anderson, Sally DeWitt,
Here.
Lorraine Hughes,
Here.
Jason Lindsay. Jason Lindsay texted me about an hour ago. He had some surgery today, so he won't make it. So we have three. We have a quorum of 3 out of 4 members that we presently have. Okay, approval of the agenda. Are there any items to be discussed? Any comments on the agenda?
Is this where you ask for something to be pulled?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like the minutes of the last meeting, June 13th. pulled.
Okay. Any comments from public? I can't see any.
Yes, we have a hand from Dawn.
Don,
Thank you very much. This is just a request again, please, for those of us that are watching on Zoom, we have no idea if anybody from the CBOC is actually there. You don't show up in the participant list. You're not showing up on our screen at all. I mean, just in the hopes of transparency, if there's some way we could set up so that we can see your faces and see that you're actually there. I know I'd appreciate it. I'm sure others would as well. As it's becoming a bigger and bigger issue, well, with people with government Zoom meetings where we don't know if the person is actually there. Sometimes they just show their name and not even their face. But anything would be better than just having us question whether somebody's there. Thank you.
Ellen, is the owl working?
I believe so. I mean, right now you can see Lorraine.
So it's
Potentially
showing this-
something we could do is if you call the roll call and then each person in attendance said like, I'm here tonight, I'm Lorraine, then the owl should find you and then show you on the big screen so that during roll call, everybody could see you as a potential idea. See how it found me now? Sometimes you have to say more than here for it to know to pick you up and not just pick up a background sound. But if we did an in-person roll call to start the meeting, it's an idea.
Okay, sure, but didn't we just do that?
But wasn't
Yeah,
long
but
enough.
I don't think he was able to see you because your box didn't get big. So maybe if you just said, hi, I'm Lorraine, I'm here
Okay.
tonight, and then kind of just went around so that the attendees in our audience could see you
Mhm.
a little bit bigger.
Yeah, so just say something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, now you'll see me. Oh, I gotta turn off my volume.
Yeah.
How do I do that?
We got a lot of reverberation there.
There, okay now? Can you hear me, Don?
Better. Thank you.
You can see me because I logged into the website, so that's why you can see me on your screen also, maybe.
And you also show up in the participant list now.
Oh,
You're
right.
the only CBOC person that shows up in the participant list.
That's because the other, I'm online. I'm doing it like you are,
Yes.
where others are in person.
Okay.
Just about the time we get it all figured out, the pandemic will be over with.
Are there any other comments from the public on the agenda? Anything else? So with that, as Lorraine were requested, we're pulling the minutes from the last meeting. With the exception of that, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. All right, public comment for items not on the agenda. No hands?
Go ahead.
Okay, first item, CBOC membership. Unfortunately, Tom Panis had to resign for some personal commitments. So as was noted earlier in the roll call, we're down to 4 members. We do have a member from the Senior Citizens Organization presently on the CBOC. But we're of
Who is that?
me.
Okay.
So of the 5 required members, the 2 that we are missing are a member who is a parent or guardian of a student, and another parent or guardian, but who is also active in the parent teacher organization. And Louis, have we had any applications come in from those, from
So we
parents and?
had one previous application that was turned in from a parent. Was Monica Aguilar. We've been unable to contact that particular applicant.
Okay.
I've tried again today to call the phone number they left. There's no answer. I've also tried their email, and it blocks us from getting access to them. So we have no way to contact this particular person.
Did she give your address? Have a hard copy.
There is an address on here. I believe we had, Sylvia wasn't here today. I believe we have mailed it, something out to them, but I couldn't confirm that as of today. We have communicated out with our principals on our master plan list for both Richmond and for Kennedy, looking for parents, although this is the summertime and those PTAs are down. Prior to this, we had contacted the Bayside PTA trying to look for membership. We are going to send a communication out to all principals when school starts back in the fall again, trying to recruit for membership. And I know in our newsletter that went out today, we also included a message in there for those recipients, trying to see if we can get some participation. And we had our communications office again, get the application back up on the website again today in hopes of trying to foster some recruitment.
Any other comments?
Lorraine here. Do you have a mass list for PTA presidents?
I do not have that list. I can certainly try to get it.
Yeah.
It would be one way to go through, I guess, individually and try to hit every school. So right now, wouldn't be available to the fall, but certainly something we could do. It's a good idea.
And how about the city councils? Just, you do like we did, a 3-minute public comment. Maybe you could send somebody out to them.
We could certainly ask them to put some on their agenda.
Yeah.
Is there any public comment on this? I can't see the little boxes.
I don't see any public comment.
Hands raised.
Only so much room on the screen, but
Okay.
One of the things that I think has been very successful in the past is previous members reaching out to people that they know. And so one of the ideas that I had today was to reach out to some previous CBOC members and see if they knew anybody, who was willing to serve as well, to kind of help pass along the message. Sometimes when you know someone that's been part of something, and you can ask them some questions, that helps. So that was another idea that we came up with today.
So on that point, what's the status of Dawn and Anton's application? I don't know if I think Dawn is still interested, and we would certainly ask him, but I don't know about Anton. He's here too. So what's the status of those two? Yeah.
So both Mr. Younger and Mr. Gosney have applications have been submitted. And just a reminder, currently our policy is no more than 3 consecutive terms. And so those, I do have those applications, but they have timed out. And I think part of that, we're waiting on the revisions to our policy.
I'll get those.
That would-
back in the queue.
Potentially, that's a portion of that, yes.
Yes.
I think when we've been discussing it, it may be an interpretation of the policy. It isn't the way the policy has been acted out in the recent past. So there are various interpretations. And I think we've talked about that. So we're still continuing with the interpretation that they have timed out, quote unquote.
At this time, yes.
We did get an email on the 9th from Don. And he said, I recently submitted an application to rejoin the CBOC. But see that for some reason, the district will not address my application. So I think, look, either give them a yes or a no, you know? They can appoint or not appoint, but to keep them in limbo all this time is just not fair for anybody. So I wish you would push the board a little more too.
And also, and while we're at it, define what the time period is, like 10 years? Less? How much less? I don't want to be, it's been extremely frustrating, extremely frustrating. And I think, I'm not sure who is standing in the way right now. Who's never stood in the way before.
I believe we need to get the policy finished. and
Right,
then
which, you know, we can elevate that from, I have it later in the agenda, but that is a real important thing. You know, we really need to just set a date and a time for the 4 of us to get together and, you know, get a draft on.
And I believe we can calendar that tonight after the meeting, if we could do
Okay,
that.
that's
Get it on the
great.
calendar.
At this meeting, we're going to be able to make a date for that meeting? Wow,
We can Get that done, since we're all here in person.
okay. So what do we want to do with,
We do have a hand when you're ready.
Well, let's respond to the hand. I can't see who it is.
Done.
Don?
Can't hear you.
You're still on mute, Mr. Rosen.
Sorry, apologize. So it sounds like the, somebody is trying to say, maybe we're going to change the board policy. Maybe the board is going to change the board policy and completely revamp how CBOC members are selected, who gets to be selected, who gets to be considered, how many people, what organizations. But right now, we have a board policy. And you have had a board policy for quite some time, and our applications have not been processed. In my belief, it should be the responsibility of the board to decide whether to accept or reject an applicant. And I don't know where the problem is. I'm getting all kinds of responses from some board members, from the superintendent, saying we're not doing it, they're not doing it. Somebody is doing it. Somebody is not processing the applications and sending them to the board for consideration. I said, whether it comes to being termed out or not, I said, I've provided legal opinions, both from our independent legal counsel and from the most prominent legal counsel for bond programs in the state of California, who represents over 500 bond programs. And they seem to be having different opinions from what we're getting from the district. It needs to be resolved, but how much of our limited amount of general fund is going to go towards dealing with legal fees on this? Because that's what it's coming to. Because right now you've got a bond program and you've got volunteers that are not being allowed to even be considered. Something is terribly wrong about that. And it's not going to make this district look any better if something isn't done properly. Thank you.
Well, that segues into
Yes.
a point that Sally
Yeah.
mentioned to me today. You want to go and?
Yeah.
Speak
Okay,
to
so
it?
it's worse than what Dawn said. Because since sometime after the first of the year, and I had trouble determining exactly what point that was, the CBOC membership fell below 7. It's now currently at 4. So as we're sitting here, we are fully out of compliance with Proposition 39. No two ways about it. Overseeing $1.5 to $2 billion worth of bond revenue. This is totally outrageous. The outrageous part is that the district is literally inviting legal action against it, which would just be a complete waste of money. And it's absolutely infuriating. I don't know who's standing in the way, but it has to stop. It has to stop now. And so I have put together a resolution, which I would like voted on here tonight by the CBOC that's here. And the resolution goes through the whole, whereas we have Prop 39, whereas this, where, you know, all these promises made to the taxpayers for an independent CBOC. We finally get to the meat of the matter. And we focus in on the grand jury number 3 recommendation, which we've had on our list. We know precisely what it is. It's pretty clear. It calls for a 5-member committee, not complicated, and a 5-member selection committee. And it even spells out who they are. So the last whereas the grand jury's, do I need to read the whole thing for the record?
I think you probably should read it for the
All
record.
right.
Since it's.
I'm sorry, is this a resolution been placed on the agenda?
So I'm going to read it from the top.
No, I'm sorry, is it on the agenda? Because if it's not on the agenda, you can't really consider it. That's a
Well-
Brown Act violation.
Yes, it is a Brown Act violation. So with that said, I'm going to read it from the top. It is a Brown Act violation, granted, but we do have a discussion item on our agenda speaking to this point, so I'm going to read it from the top. Resolution 22-02, July 11th, 2022, create selection committee to nominate and select new members for WCCUSD CBOC. Whereas the legislative action to place Prop 39 school facilities 55% local vote bonds, taxes, accountability requirements on the ballot and enacted by the California electorate in 2000 established citizens bond oversight committees as a requirement for school construction bonds passed by 55% majorities. And whereas California Ed Code 15278 implementing Prop 39 states, quote, the purpose of the Citizens Oversight Committee shall be to inform the public concerning the expenditures of bond revenues. This Citizens Oversight Committee shall actively review and report on the proper expenditure of taxpayer money for school construction. The Citizens Oversight Committee shall advise the public as to whether a school district or community college district is in compliance with the requirements of paragraph 3 of subdivision B of section 1 of Article 13A of the California Constitution. And whereas 5 of 7 WCCUSD bond measures were set up for voter approval at a threshold of 55% instead of a 2/3 vote, and thus require oversight by a Citizens Bond Oversight Committee per California Ed Code section 15278 and 15280, referred to here as WCCUSD Prop 39 bond measures. And whereas all WCCUSD Prop 39 bond measures, ballot measure language approved by WCCUSD Board of Education promise voters a quote, independent, end quote, CBOC, and quote, strict citizens oversight, quote, end quote. For example, in Measure R, under the heading Financial Accountability, the board promised, all caps included, quote, all bond measures will be monitored by an independent Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, parentheses, Education Code, section 278. Can't pronounce it. End quote. I'm sorry, end paren, to ensure that funds are spent as promised and specified, end quote. Whereas despite these very clear electoral and legislative mandates, WCCUSD and other K-12 and community college districts in the state of California have not acted to fully and properly comply with them. And whereas some K-12 and community college district school construction bond programs in the state of California have produced fraud, waste, and or abuse that could have been detected earlier, limited in scope and cost, and or prevented if the legally mandated effective oversight had existed. And whereas since sometime after January 1, 2022, membership in WCCUSD's CBOC dropped below 7, at which point WCCUSD fell fully out of compliance with Prop 39. And as it stands currently, WCCUSD's CBOC has 4 members with no officer other than the chair. And whereas the 2014 to 15 Contra Costa County Grand Jury Report 1514 entitled WCCUSD Bond Program and Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, a case study in stymied oversight, included recommendation number 3, meant to make the process of nominating and appointing CBOC members merit-based and transparent, quote, to ensure public confidence, end quote. Whereas the grand jury's 2015 number 3 recommendation reads as follows, quote, the school board should create an independent selection committee to select new nominees for CBOC comprised of the CBOC chair and a designated appointee from the CBOC, 2 members from the Board of Education, and school superintendent or designee for a committee of 5. Selection should be based on merit and be a transparent process to ensure public confidence in this vital selection process, end quote. Now, therefore, be it resolved that WCCUSD's CBOC recommends that WCCUSD's Board of Education take immediate action in support of the grand jury 2015 recommendation number 3 as follows. Number 1, approve formation of a CBOC nomination and selection committee to select new nominees for the CBOC comprised of the CBOC chair and a designated appointee from the CBOC, 2 members from the Board of Education, and the school superintendent or a designee for a committee of 5. And number 2, affirm the process of selecting new CBOC members should be based on merit and transparent to ensure public confidence in this vital selection process. Signed by John Anderson, the chair, today's date. That's the resolution.
Well,
Discussion.
I think since it wasn't on the agenda, it's good for information purposes. And later on in the meeting, I'm suggesting that we have a meeting with Dr. Hurst. And I think this would be good information to take to him, to take to the board, and give a suggestion for them to follow that, what is listed in here. We're not in charge of, we don't have the power to tell them how to set up a committee. We're suggesting that this is from the grand jury suggests this. So I think it's more information than anything. And I think we should meet with Dr. Hurst. There are a couple things. We're talking about financial reports. We're talking about dates for performance audits. That can be discussed with him. Things are falling through the cracks here. And I think we have to get back on track. And I think Dr. Hurst he's your boss. You can't do anything. You have to take it up higher. And he would be maybe the go-between between us and the board, and he can bring it up at the board meeting.
This is recommending what the grand jury has recommended. This is us saying, the 3 of us saying that we recommend that you take the grand jury's recommendation.
Mhm. Right.
And of course, we can't set up a committee, but we can make a recommendation. That's perfectly
Mhm.
within our purview to make a recommendation. And we can also talk about audits and things like this, but this is
This,
particularly focused on the selection of CBOC members, which is an urgent matter right at the moment. They are out of compliance with Prop 39. Severely out of compliance because of the membership, not because of audits, not because of this, that, or the other thing. Membership.
Mhm.
That's what we're focused on.
I don't think we should vote on it tonight. I think it should be put on the agenda for next time.
Well, next time is September.
Yeah.
Because we're not having a meeting in August.
We are not one.
I won't be here in August.
Okay.
And that means who's going to be the chair? I don't have a vice chair. Somebody else to run the meeting. That's what, that's a,
And what
I
we're
pulled
talking
that out
about,
separately, but that's the reason why the agenda says this, the 11th, to discuss that when we get further on down.
Right.
and I get what you're saying, but this is a really urgent matter. And if we have to bend the rules, then sue us. You know, bring on the attorneys and tell us that we violated the Brown Act. Fine. I'm willing. Sorry, but this is really very important.
Yeah, Lorraine, I think I agree with Sally. It really is just getting the point out there.
Just getting the point out
That
there.
Well,
this,
send a letter.
That's what we're
As the-
doing. This is what that is.
But I don't think we should vote on this if it's not on the agenda.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying. I mean, we just differ in our
Right.
opinions.
And as far as it is eminent, yeah, it is eminent, but they're already doing things like that. So what's the committee going to say? They're going to say, well, maybe we should contact the PTA. I mean, it's not like it's not being worked on. It's not showing the
No, this
urgency.
is a selection process that is transparent and merit-based.
Mm,
It's controlled by that selection committee, which is partly the CBOC, it's 2 members of the CBOC, 2 members of the school board, and the superintendent of the designee. It's not anybody else. It's
Mhm.
that selection committee, which is a more transparent merit-based process. And that should be put in place, and we should proceed with the applications that are already in place.
I guess my comment on just a historic observation. In the past, it was the facilities committee that basically reviewed the applications and made the recommendation to the board. And that hasn't existed for a year.
So there is no committee.
So the way I look at this is we're just kind of saying, we've got to do something. It's in a situation where it's just by us making this a resolution and saying that, I guess you could say we've had it.
mhm.
And this is, the grand jury had looked at the situation, they looked at the situation being, and they entitled it stymied, a case study in stymied oversight.
Correct.
Because it was members were being selected in a non-transparent, non-merit-based, because they called that out specifically in their recommendation.
Sally,
So this is a better process. Oh, I'm sorry.
not to interrupt, but hearing you out, we're going to schedule a meeting to go through the policy tonight. If we can schedule a meeting and coming out of that, possibly we could hold a special meeting of the CBOC this month. We could probably get these things on the board in August. We hear you. I think part of figuring out how we're recruiting, we need to figure out how we're actually doing outreach, right? So we do have 2 applicants between Don and Anton, but we're still missing some of the key people, right? Even with
Sure.
adding those, it's not solving the problem.
I
So it's
don't
the
disagree.
outreach that somehow we have to have better outreach. I mean, we've been trying, but we need, if if you have ideas, you know, we need to try some other ways to get something out there.
Okay, so what you're suggesting is we convene a meeting of the subcommittee and the, and work to get this on the board agenda in August. Is
The
that what you're
policy,
suggesting?
And then we need, if we get the policy updated, but if you really want this, you know, I suggest you do what Lorraine was talking about. If you want to send, you know, a letter to the superintendent, you can do that, but I think internally, we get the policy done this month with a special meeting, we can get that to the board.
Mhm.
And we just need to figure out how we're going to do recruiting.
Okay, I'm quite willing. I will say I'm supposed to be out of town. It's gonna have to be next week. It's gonna have to be next week because I'm out of town the following week.
All right, we'll look at our calendars.
Okay.
So then, after that, after the subcommittee meets, if we feel that there's a need, we have a special meeting.
Then we
That
make
was
the
the
decision at
suggestion, a
that
special CBOC meeting in August.
Well,
Yeah,
and if
early
August
August,
doesn't
with
work,
just
if-
one
yeah,
item on the agenda.
as long as we can squeeze it in so it accommodates your schedule, then
Yes.
that way we.
I'll be out of town the last week of July, but back at the end of July. So early August, I could. I mean, it's part of the problem of having a CBOC that's so incredibly small.
Because I do think that your resolution, and this is something that we've shared with the city, is the CBOC Policy Ad Hoc Committee has, I think it's something like 17 different resources that have been part of developing a policy, which incorporate recommendations from the grand jury, which incorporate recommendations from the CBOC. I see the resolution that you just read is right in line with that. And so I do think that, you know, things are lining up, and if we are able to move it, you know, I think that could be a great win.
Yes, I would agree with you. That's a big if, given where we are and how we've gotten to where we are right now. I'm gonna be incredibly disappointed if we don't make it. We've been talking about this all year. So that's as much as I can say about that. And thank you for giving me the chance to vent that particular feeling.
How about putting this resolution on the agenda for the special meeting? Are you talking about a CBOC committee meeting?
Yeah, she was
And put
talking
this
about,
on there,
yeah.
and it could be
that would be the-
handed in with the policy. If you're going to finish that up. No, won't.
No, because the policy would become the letter, if you will.
Yeah.
That would be what would go to the board.
So it's not the complete BP 742 or .2 or whatever.
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
But this is a very important part of it,
It is
and
very
something that
important.
we've spent a lot of time talking about.
And from all of our meetings, I just picked out this particular part because it was so clear.
Mhm.
I don't know, I think we've discussed a little bit of this. Honestly, after making up the selection committee, then it becomes, there's a few more details, like somebody is nominated, and then how does it go to the board? Is a consent item or not, and things like that. So that's why in the second one, I just put on, the second part of this recommendation was just affirm that the policy is going to be transparent and merit-based.
Which comes
Which it
straight
was.
out of the grand jury recommendation. Those
yeah.
exact words are
Yeah.
in R3.
Yeah,
And
so I didn't
the,
go beyond that.
and the details you're mentioning are part of that, the policy. So that's to add to the transparency. as
Yes.
to How that,
Yes, there are
That-
details to
that
work out in the
works.
whole process, but I didn't go that far. I just said, in this case,
Mhm.
well, let's go. Let's keep going.
Mhm.
so we haven't got this up for a motion. It really is a point of discussion.
It is a point of discussion, and my gut level says, I want to believe Louis and Melissa, I really do. I see what they're doing, and I'll just be so disappointed if we don't get there. And if we don't, and we're sitting here in September and we still haven't done anything. Well, by that time, you're gonna have lawsuits. You just will. I just can't believe it would happen. It's such a waste of money. It will completely infuriate.
You also have the status of, we have $575 million that you've taken on a bond issue, and you're not fulfilling the ed code. Now, what happens to that money? You know, if you lose the lawsuit, could they put a hold on the money? You don't know.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah. I mean, it's just an invitation. Please sue me.
So the plan is to get the policy wrapped up within the next week or so. And then at that point in time.
By Friday of this week, so that if we're gonna walk out of here tonight with a date. Can we do that?
Yep.
Okay, for next week's meeting of the subcommittee.
Right.
And then we might even look at a date for the special meeting of the CBOC.
That
which
would be great.
Early August before you leave, John.
Yeah, it would be sometime.
Can we do that now?
That would be great.
I've got my calendar.
I don't have a life either. I'm free. My dogs don't have a vote.
As long as you're home, your dogs are happy.
So I have basically between the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of August. And I could do the 4th. But after, from the 5th through, I won't be back in the Bay Area until Sunday, the 14th of August. So we would look at that special meeting being,
I think Melissa and Louis are looking at their calendars.
So we typically do Monday night. So do we want to do August the 1st is a Monday?
Mhm.
It means we would need to post for the meeting the Friday before.
on the 20.
I think that's the 29th.
Is that too soon
What's the-
for you? Okay,
The board meeting, so Louis brings up an excellent point. So there's 2 board meetings in August. There's a board meeting on August 3rd, so we wouldn't make that meeting, but there's another board meeting in August.
Yeah.
And by doing it so early in the month, less time
Okay,
to get it prepared in time for the board calendar that we have to meet the timeframes associated with that.
okay,
I'm good
so,
with it.
like, it looks like the 1st of August then, would that be
Mhm.
acceptable to your calendars?
Yep, so then we'll still get to have an August meeting. We'll just have it earlier in the month. We'll have it on the 1st.
Right,
I'm not sure when you're gonna move on to public comment, but we do have 2 hands.
So the 1st is for a committee meeting or your special?
Yes.
meeting?
Yes.
It's
No,
for the
first is
CBOC
for
meeting.
the
For the
CBOC.
CBOC meeting,
Okay.
special CBOC meeting.
Right. And it
Alright.
could just be one item on it. You don't have to
That's right.
That's,
have a special
Because
meeting. Yeah.
There's the possibility that would also be the meeting that we present we have a published, for the first time, the published draft.
Yes.
Okay, so who do we have for comments?
Both Dawn and Anton.
Don?
Thank you. I just want to remind people, and I want to make sure this goes on the record, that since this resolution was not agendized, any discussion of it, any vote on it, anything about this is a violation of the Brown Act. And that's got me very concerned. that I pointed out that this was a violation of the Brown Act, and we said, we don't care, we're gonna continue with it anyway. You can't be doing that. We want transparency. Here we just preached about transparency with the district, and the CBOC itself is violating the Brown Act on this. Can't do that. That's bad. Thanks.
Anton?
I agree with Sally's resolution. Based on my listening to the discussion, it seems to be a consensus between the CBOC members that this direction is important. I agree with Sally that the district is at risk for a taxpayer suit, which will get expedited in the courts under the section of the education code that allows any taxpayer to bring a suit for not having a CBOC. I would suggest that you vote on this tonight, contrary to Don's admonition, in order to send a clear message to the district. What is the risk of doing that? The risk is someone can challenge the action, and at the subsequent meeting, you reconsider the action again. The risk of not doing anything is a potential legal lawsuit, which will stop the whole construction program. So I suggest, in balancing the risks and the rewards, and there seems to be consensus from the CBOC members that the direction of the resolution is something we want to do, I suggest that you vote on it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Yeah, I would say that the point being that it's an emergency situation. And we just got the word from Tom Panis. Of course, we were under the 7-member number before Tom Panis resigned, but that just came up a day or two ago.
I disagree. I don't think we should vote on it tonight. I think it's very important, and I think we've sent the message. I think you guys have gotten the message, and we'll send it on. But I do not agree with going against the Brown Act for this.
So the other compromise on this is that we have the meeting scheduled with, we'll have a policy. Then we have this meeting on the 1st of August. And at that point in time, we will have a resolution product. You and I'll have to talk after our meeting with staff. We probably might have 2 resolutions. One that emphasizes this point, another one related to the, I'm gonna put words in our mouth, endorsement of adoption of a policy. But I think that would be, and my point, Sally, is we're still moving. Just not doing it tonight, but we're gonna do it. In
Yeah,
2
I mean,
weeks.
the staff knows the risks as much as we do in terms of stopping construction. And it's a big one. It's just an open invitation. That's what's happening here. I don't know who thinks that this is a good idea or worth the risk. But as a
could also
member of
lead-
the public and as a taxpayer, it's absolutely infuriating. Absolutely.
Could also lead to another grand jury investigation.
Absolutely. It could.
So just to reiterate, the plan is the ad hoc committee will meet, finish things up.
And we don't know when ad hoc. committees
Well,
will
it will meet before, and on the 1st of August, we'll have a meeting that will just deal with the topic of the policy in this particular item.
We're looking at no more
That's
than
where
3
we'll have
weeks.
resolution, resolution in this form or whatever might change. Between the 2 of us. So is that acceptable to everyone? We don't need to, there's no motion right
Yeah.
now.
And that's acceptable.
We'll just close out the discussion on this.
One of the things, Louis, I'll check with CBOC. They may have someone there who has done this recruiting before and can help you on it. And I'll get you a contact for that.
Thank you.
And just to go back to it, I think the more important thing, I think Sally alluded to that, we talked about is the 2 required slots that are from parents or guardians, one of them being active in the Parent Teacher Association.
Mhm.
And the last item on this particular point under membership, I had, where Sally mentioned it, we're now back to just having one officer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I suppose we'll go that way we did that back in
For 3 weeks.
early in the year, we'll go that, go that to that at least the next meeting. Get somebody. And in the meantime, Sylvia's putting her minutes together and get everything.
Do we want to go make the meeting for the special,
No,
for the
this-
ad hoc committee?
And if you'd like.
Yeah, might as well take up everybody's time for a little minute, or two. but-
Next week.
Have a day or time, that's your first preference.
Right now, I'm open the 18th through the 22nd for a change.
That's the conflict on the 21st in the morning. And, yeah, the 21st in the morning. Other than that, I don't.
So could I recommend early in the week so that if we want a chance to
Yes.
get back
Fantastic.
together, that creates that opportunity?
18th?
Yep.
Can I
Good enough.
suggest 1 o'clock? I actually can't be available before 10.
Make it
So afternoon is better. Morning is not good on Monday, but afternoon.
Okay, July 18th, what, 1 PM?
2 probably, we'll send out the invite.
Okay, great.
Sorry, did you say 2?
2 o'clock,
2 o'clock, okay, gotcha.
and I'll send that out tonight, right after the meeting.
Okay.
So the next item on the agenda is the consent items, and we had the draft minutes pulled. The only item on the agenda is the records log. So that item is, one item on the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. And then Lorraine, your comment on the draft minutes?
Yeah, would you put up page 11 of the agenda? I'm dealing with number H, the bond program project status, and A, the facilities master plan. Okay, you see the notes underneath, it says public comments, Mr. Gosney. It says committee members had comments and questions, and Mrs. Hooper addressed them. Is it Mayhew? Mayhia. I'm sorry. Mrs. Mayhia Hooper also pointed out 2 invoices, etc. My comment is this is very, very vague. At this point in the meeting, you gave us the imagining talk. And we had the 3 choices. You could have the renovate, the hybrid part renovate, part new, or the new. And the costs were like $300 and some million to $488 million on each project. And I had made the point about how much this is, and we have 21 schools, et cetera, to which you explained about the increase in costs and stuff. But I think that has more emphasis than you had some questions and you addressed it, because it gives more historical. I don't know who's doing the minutes from the staff.
Sylvie does the minutes. for
Oh,
the
okay.
group, but we also turn them back to the committee for markups and our comments, so.
Yeah. But I would just like a little more content on the comments, because sometimes the comments are as important as agenda. That's my only issue here.
Are there any hands up?
We do, Mr. Gosling.
Don?
You're muted, Don.
It was Anton, I think, wasn't it?
Don, you're muted.
Sorry, I try to be silent on my side. I said, a lot of people or some people think that minutes should just be simple. Well, an item got brought up, it was talked about, move on. Other people actually think that you ought to, if you read the minutes, you should have some idea what actually happened. And with the minutes we've got here, it's more of the former rather than the latter. We've had a lot of these kinds of minutes. It's just, it doesn't tell anybody about what actually happened. Just saying that I commented or that the committee members had questions. It doesn't tell anybody anything at all. There's no record of anything. And the suggestion is, well, you can always go back and listen to the 2-hour video. That's not quite right. I mean, we should be able to just go through the minutes, look at that little paragraph and have at least some idea about what happened at the meeting. I said, I disapprove of this kind of a minute. Thanks.
No other comments? All right, let's go to the staff report.
Did we vote on the consent item?
That was unanimous.
Oh, it was unanimous. Okay, gotcha.
Unless it's pulled,
Okay.
there's got to be some corrections. The other item was approved by unanimous.
So do we vote on the pool one?
Yeah, didn't Lorraine? pull that?
Well, it has to be corrected,
Okay, so it'll be next
so it'll
time.
be resubmitted to the
Yeah.
next time.
Just so I'm clear, are you asking staff to go back and add more to that item, or is that something that Chair will?
Probably, yeah, I think probably if you could highlight to me where you were.
Sure, I'll send Sylvia something.
Because that's the way Tom and I.
That's
work.
fine.
Goes back and makes change.
Thank you.
Ready? Here we go. Another month. So for the planning, we have the Kennedy enrichment projects again, and they are pending board discussion. We're looking to schedule a special board meeting, but the date has not been set yet. Design, we have Hercules, which I'm happy to announce that today I got the email saying we have been admitted to DSA. So that means we've passed the initial review and we are officially in DSA for review. So that's exciting. Especially since this is our second try at it. So here we go. And Shannon is continuing its design. We're into past DDs into construction documents now, and having various departments review their pieces, make sure we've got everything in place so that we can get details drawn, and it will go into DSA as well this fall. We have a couple things that are waiting for next summer to bid. Riverside and Collins both are going to need to continue on to next summer so that we can accomplish it while the kids are out. And then we also have Cameron School that we're evaluating the bidding schedule. For our design build project, we have Riverside, which is in closeout. We submitted the very last form to DSA the other day. And so now we are just waiting for that lovely letter to come in to say that we are certified. And so we're dangerously close to dropping this off of our list, which is a wonderful thing because that means we're done. Construction, Pinole, we have slides for Pinole, so I'll go into detail there. E-rates moving along. They're continuing to proceed through the schools. And Kennedy's Field, we have bids in, and we are going to go to the board to see if they will approve the contract and award the bid on the 13th. So we might be under construction with that one come our next meeting. And Lake is moving us along as well. So we're under construction for the first increment, and we're still in DSA for the second increment. So looking at Kennedy, since we haven't really had a chance to chat about Kennedy, I brought a couple slides to go over what the scope is. This is our current less than spectacular turf field, but don't worry, we're coming. So the improvements here include actually relocating the home bleachers. So the home bleachers are going to move to the other side. There will be new home bleachers erected with a new press box on the visitors, the new visitor side. We will be also installing bleachers. So for all, we'll be able to seat a similar number of people, but they will be on both sides of the field this time. We are resurfacing the track and putting new carpet down, as well as replacing the rock over the drainage pipes in the turf area. We are also relocating the fields, some of the fields events for track and field. So the discus is moving closer to the shot put, which is much better programmatically for the school site, because there's normally only one throwing coach. And when they're on two different sides of the stadium, it's very hard for that one throwing coach to give any attention to the people that are practicing. So that's a good thing. Kennedy was also one of the few schools that only had one long jump. And when you only have one, depending on how much wind you have, which, you know, occasionally there's wind at Kennedy, you can actually disqualify your run during a meet. And so this way we will have two directional long jumps, which is something that's present in most of our other campuses. Actually, I think all of our other campuses. So that's a good addition. So that's getting moved over to this side of the track. It's also getting it out of the D zone, which is good because it makes those spaces less crowded. And when you have a larger meet, you're able to have more events at once. So there's several advantages to that that makes it exciting. On top of that, we are redoing a little bit of the fencing in the front so that there will actually be a safe queuing area that's not in the drive aisle of the parking lot. So we'll have a little bit more of a pedestrian way in front of the stadium, which should help our safety. And we're replacing some of the gates to realign now that we have the bleachers on one side. We needed to realign the vehicle gates so that they can still make entry onto the field. For the major components of the new stadium, there'll be additional paving, the shot put's getting redone, and if you've seen it lately, it really could use some love. So we're very excited to get this going.
Is this with the bond D and E money, or is this R?
No, this was approved for Measure R.
Okay.
Yes. And really, I mean, all of these components, while they're important, the field, the turf, and the press box and the bleachers were all definitely a safety concern. They are well in need of looking at. So it's important for us to get this project rolling along.
Right.
Any other questions? Moving on.
Oh, I got a question.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. I've talked to a number of people in that community, elected officials, community leaders, and universally it's agreed. Why would the school district have the home field fans staring straight into the sun during these sporting events? That's what's happening here by relocating the direction or the side that the home field is sitting on. These are late afternoon track meets. These are late afternoon soccer meets. These are late afternoon football games. And that's exactly where the sun is setting, right over the Kennedy apartments, staring directly into the eyes of the fans, blinding them. It just doesn't make sense on that. And I need to also address on you mentioned something about the long jump. If it gets a little bit windy, I said, now you have to understand, I truly am an expert when it comes to track and field. For 47 years, I've been on the staff of Track and Field News. And the only time the wind takes effect on there is in case of a national high school record. And you have to have a wind gauge there all the time anyway for that to take effect. If you don't have a wind gauge there, if you're not going to have a national high school record attempt, which we don't have here at Kennedy High School, then it doesn't matter about that. And traditionally, you're able to flip it back and forth if you do have a wind issue. But since you're not going to have a national caliber track meet at Kennedy High School, that's not really a good reason for it. I mean, I agree. You should actually have 2 runways and pits on both sides, because you've got the boys long jump, the girls long jump. You got the boys triple jump, the girls triple jump. That's 4 events. You try doing them one after the other, and that could take all day and half the night. Thank you.
Well, I guess what's good, we have 2 then. And there was much discussion about the home bleachers and the sun, and whether one side was better than the other. I will point out that the press box is only imperative on the football games. So if the sun's in a less than advantageous spot, either side could be used. But there is that option. But the facilities and school staff believed that the home side was better served closer to the main campus and away from the street edge. And so that was how that decision was made. So it was input from the school site that made that decision. The next slide is on Lake. And as I said, we are moving into phase 1, but it's also increment 1, which is our demolition and undergrounds phase. So we are emptying the kindergarten building, and this building will shortly no longer be there to make room for our first phase construction. And in the meantime, we're also locating utilities. So that's what you see here. We're digging for utilities to make sure that we have them and disconnect them to the building. At Knoll, things have been moving along quite a bit. So we're at the fun time of construction because you can actually see progress every month. So unfortunately at Lake, we'll be in that place where we see holes in the ground for the next couple months and potentially trenches, which is always exciting, but it doesn't make for good photography. Knoll, on the other hand, we've got the lath up. So the plaster is coming very soon. Inside the building, they're finishing up the initial drywall. Most of the utilities are in place. The portables have been demolished. So this is them in progress, but this pile's gone now, and they are very close to lime treating this area, and then we will get the base rock and AC put on top. On the field, we had this really cool machine out there that was spreading the underlayment of the track. And now the underlayment is done. They are putting the top surfaces on. This is the first coat of the top surface. And up at the softball baseball field, we have the foundations for the bleachers. So that's what all of these rows are, as they will be the future bleachers. The large poles for the backstop are also getting painted. They were too big to come pre-powder coated. So they painted them on site. On the softball end over the storm drain, we are happy to now have the border, the concrete border that has the nailer edge that we're able to nail the turf surface into. So they're finishing the top dressing of the stone, and will soon lay the pad and turf. So, and that rolls out really fast. It was amazing to watch the football field go down because it's like a couple days process and you go from having nothing but the sea of rock to having a big, beautiful field. But then we have a small problem because people think it's ready to play on, which it's not. So please stay off the field.
So the baseball and softball fields will be synthetic.
They are synthetic, yes. It's a little different system than what's on the football field.
Yeah, I know that. I had a son who played high school and played baseball at college. And I don't remember him playing on a synthetic field at all.
It is a change that's occurred. We are putting in the skin surface as a different color. So there will be still a skinned area. But it is different, although, you know, it always depends on who you talk to, but I have had people who are very excited. about this. But we'll see how it goes. Yeah. So then we have the construction newsletters. And the status reports. And that completes the
Okay, any questions? I just have one question and it really goes to Melissa. So where do we stand with the financial reports now?
So we're working closely with the business office. Cinja, who previously prepared the financial report, she's our executive director of business services, so she moved to a different department. We really had a hard time backfilling her position. We have someone who started on July 5th, and so they've been in training. And their sole focus right now is getting the accurate reports produced so that we can get back on our monthly timely cycle. And so it's an extremely high priority. We've just really struggled with trying to fill vacant positions. And just the capacity associated with thing that she was able to do any longer in her new role.
Which segues into the next point on the annual reports. With losing Tom, we also lost our person that was going to be the lead for the report writing. So we need to sort that out. But the other thing in there is that we had that resolution at the end of last year where this report that we'll start preparing now will go through the 30th of June this year. Right? So that your information is important for us. This will be an unusual circumstance that we'll have a 18-month report because we'll cover all 2000.
And one of the things that you'll see as they're starting to produce the reports is we do close. So our fiscal year ended on June 30th. So we're going through the year-end closing process now. And so our final report that'll have the final data for June 30 will probably be available early September because we'll be going through the actual close along with the full district financial system.
June 30th.
Oh, you know, I'm not going to do it tonight, but I think the three of us who've been involved in the report are going to have to sort out how we're going to deal with
Well,
getting the most important thing that we do.
Minor detail of major proportion.
at this point, we can have two people in the committee, and Jason and I are already on it.
Oh,
So I guess everybody will have to help out, but I guess we'll be the ones co-chairman or whatever. Yeah. So if you go to page 34 on the agenda, it's that resolution. And at the bottom, what John was talking about is that it says, number 3, have a report including a CBOC compliance statement with the results of the June 30th, 2021 financial and performance audits be approved by June 30th. Now, the board has not even accepted the performance. Remember on May 9th, they said they were not because we hadn't seen it yet. Well, then in our meeting, we saw it, we gave it to them, and I looked on the agenda, I don't see anything. I haven't seen anything on it. Also, we have the, where we sent it to the one state, see if it was a valid,
Right.
did we hear anything back from them?
No, and actually, that's one item that I have it a little bit later under audit schedules.
Yeah.
I need to touch base with Tom on that, because he sent it off to them,
Right.
but I couldn't find a copy of what he sent, so
Mhm.
I need to just connect with him.
So that's why item number 3 has not been
And
done.
I think that's probably a month. That we might have sent that out
Yeah.
right before the last meeting, so about a month ago.
So actually, we could be working on data from January of 2021. You know,
Right.
and Jason and I, hopefully he'll recover quickly and we can get back together. I don't know if we'll have it for the August 1st. Well, that's a special meeting
That's-
anyway,
It'll be September,
but hopefully we'll have it up and suggestions
but
for
we'll
that.
need to get that organized. And then I had to put another item in there in report format and talking individual to a couple, probably for one, or I looked at some other CBOC reports that were a little bit, and for other districts were a little shorter. But the point is that, this is what I pointed out, they had, their references weren't attached to the report.
Right.
In other words, we took something like report 13 in that, they actually referred to a district report rather than including it in the document itself.
Mhm. Or give a
which
link.
is difficult for
Yeah.
people to really get a comprehensive viewpoint, so I don't suggest,
Yeah, we'll try to cut it
well,
down.
sure, we'll cut it where we can, but I don't think, well, the idea, thing I was talking about, where it cuts too much meat.
Yeah.
Meat out of the background.
So for the next meeting, maybe if you guys would just look over and look things you think we could,
Yeah.
Mhm,
we could eliminate.
mhm.
A
That
lot
would
of the
be
histories we can eliminate because we just repeat it anyway.
Yeah, the full meeting would be on the 11th.
Okay, all right, good.
Or we'll see. We might have a couple of small items. extra
On the
for
12th.
First.
Being on the 12th.
No,
September.
this is in September. First, the second Monday in September. It's the 12th, I'm sorry. Okay, any questions? I don't. Okay. The next item we've already addressed. Ad hoc committee. With that. And there was another item. Item number K, and it was the audit schedules. Did you update them? out
I
there?
did.
That's
I
what
did.
thought.
So, we tabled the item, for Tom or Mr. Panis to be here for the meeting. But I did update the table with the information that we had. And it's about time to add in information for the annual audits for fiscal year 22, as we're getting ready to
Finish up.
finish those up. And so there is some new information that I would like to share here. But you can see on the next page, I put in all of the different school facility program audits. So the format slightly changed, but I believe all the information is here. And so this gives you the idea of the project, the application type, the state dollars received, and the legal deadline. So I'm actually really proud of this. So that was a new ed code that said any dollars that you received starting in 2017, you do this independent third-party audit to ensure that the dollars that you received met all of the grant agreement items. Fun because they didn't have a grant agreement back then. That was a newer thing that got developed. But we successfully completed 9 out of the 10 audits. So we get to keep all of the money, which of course is really, really good news. And the next one isn't due until November. But as additional audits come up, as we continue to really try to leverage those dollars, I'll just keep adding them to this information. So my intention is I have new information that I would update the schedule so that you guys would have that
So
information.
this will be like an item when you're.
I think that's good. Yeah, and we had that in the past, and I think it's just a good way to kind of keep your finger on the pulse of all of the different audits that are taking place in the program.
Any questions?
Melissa, are the companies Eddie Bailey and Moss, are they doing their work now? And we just, what status are we in on these?
So for specifically for phase 1.5 and for 2.0, so I have an update meeting on phase 1.5 scheduled for later this week. And then I have some items that I need to provide to Moss Adams later this week. And so they're both in progress. And so I don't currently have a date to share, but I should have more information by the September meeting. I should really definitively know where we are and when we'll be bringing those forward, because we should be just about wrapped up with both. And that might actually be kind of nice, because one of the things that I know Mr. Panis had mentioned before about the annual report is it would be really nice to have, you know, the June 30 year end would be nice to have some of these audits wrapped as well, so that they could be included. And so I want you guys to know that it is top priority for us. We have the limited staff that we have. We did some interviews last week too, and so hopefully we'll be filling another vacancy that we've had, and that should really help us kind of manage the volume of work that we have, so that we can continue to bring some of these things forward.
Questions? Questions from the public? And then we were talking earlier on the report. I need to touch base with Tom and the information that he sent to the district. Okay, the last item was the next meeting. I had put down September 12th. We've since changed that. So we will have a special meeting on August 1st to deal with the policy issues and the selection of committee members. And then full meeting after that will be September 12th. Comments, questions?
I'd like to suggest something for the next full meeting that we have.
The 12th. September.
Yeah. Louis, I saw that you're going to be giving a yearly report on the FMP to the committee this week.
Yes.
Maybe you could give us that slideshow?
Yeah.
And I also saw that Dr. Hurst is going to put on the meeting, he's going to ask for the extension of the hybrid meetings. And he's putting a proposition on or whatever. So they'll be extended.
Headed by the governor, or
Well, you
each
have to-
district
So
do its own thing?
So the governor has issued the state of emergency, which is part of the criteria that allows for the hybrid, but each agency has to adopt the extension and then renew it.
Okay.
So we currently don't have it, so it's coming back to the board on the 13th. for consideration.
In that report that we had on 361, which is the law that that explained that law, and it said in there that you have to have a current state of emergency. And I noticed that the governor has taken several things off of his original state of emergency. I don't know, I haven't done the research to see if the meetings, the Brown Act meetings were taken off or if they're still on. But it said in there were some exceptions. If your county health department wants you still to have distancing, then that was another thing. I think I gave you that. Yeah, check that over. But because I didn't see in the resolution those things. Wondering.
Yeah, it still takes a local action though to do that. It has to be renewed every 30 days. So last time it was brought to the board, there was no vote for it. So we're bringing it back again.
Mhm.
With that, I'd like to thank everybody and we'll adjourn by unanimous consent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.
Yes, thank you.